What inspired you to become a scientist, especially a scientist about biodiversity?
That's a great question. I was exposed as a 5-year-old to the BBC documentaries on nature by David Attenborough, and I had a book for Christmas. It was the first book called Life on Earth, and I used to wander around the house with that book. My grandmother said to me, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be David Attenborough." And so media and science communication made me want to be a scientist.
So what about technologies now? In hindsight, are they really likely to help us?
Fourth Industrial Revolution is about combining digital technologies and nature, the information revolution with nature. So how are we inspired by nature, but how can we use technology to bring nature into the city? And I think that's very promising.
But the question is, do we understand nature enough?
No.
To come up with the good solutions and bring them into our future development? Are we bringing in the wrong type, or are we doing in the right type? That's a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder, I have to say.
That's my career. My science is about trying to figure that out. And our approach is that you won't get the right answer straight away. We have this adaptive management. You start by building a solution. Does it work? Yes, it's working. You do a bit more and you add nature.
How big data and the visualization of big data is helping us to understand our ecosystem, especially in cities?
Every city is unique, has a unique history, but there are many common trends. So cities from the industrialized world, let's say European and North American cities, have a very particular pattern of growth, and they lost nature in a particular way. Developing cities are growing very, very fast as well, but in each case they've eroded nature. So our models allow us to show that pattern and how we can design, we can apply the science to design cities better, whether that's London or Singapore or Shanghai or Montreal. It's the same science, the same approach. And so the idea is, if we can use data to manage green space in cities, we can improve people and we can improve nature. So what happens is we show them a map, and maps are amazing things. Everyone can stand around a map and look at a map and point to where they live. And so our maps show where we can put green space. And what we can do is we can show a map for today, but our models and our data also make projections for the future. So we can say, this is what Montreal will look like in 2050 or 2100, and say, look, if we do this now, this is all the benefits that we have in the future. If we don't, if we stay with business as usual, then we're going to lose all this nature.
Montreal, already a beautiful city. You don't have any problem, do you?
That nature is not equally distributed throughout the city. Some places have very little nature, very small ecosystems, and there are parts with much more nature. So we want to improve that by using networks. We want to build a network of green space and ecosystems in the city. And so we've been using data to show how we can how can we design a network for a big city like Montreal so that everybody has access to that nature and to that biodiversity.
Tell me about the trees.
And so in Montreal, for example, Canadian maple tree is well known, is very resilient. We have in Canada right now an invasive beetle, which is coming in and killing the ash trees in Montreal, but not just in Montreal, all over North America. Millions of trees are dying right now. And so people are trying to find the right combinations of trees to push back this invasive beetle. And so this is the day-to-day of working with organisms, trying to manage these ecosystems, but also working with the government to help them understand.
But they would say, this is our national tree. We need to have as many as possible. Tourists love them.
They do, and we have many of them, but we're worried about their future. And we're worried about how we manage. If we stay business as usual with how we manage our ecosystems, we will lose our national tree.
How would you convince them?
Well, we convince them through engaging them from the beginning of the research. So I had a telephone call from the government. They said, Andy, we would like you to apply your research. So from the get-go, we had them around the table and said, this is how we apply the science. What do you think? How should we do it? And they advise us. And so all the way through, we have the co-design of the science, so that by the end, it's not a surprise. We say, this is the solution, this is our map, this is where you should plant your ecosystems, and they already agree. They understand where it came from, where the science and the data come from.
But you know, there's an issue. there's a huge difference between ecological system that is naturally developed and ecological system that is artificially produced. What you said just now and the advice you give to the localities really belongs to the second part. Even though they could eventually become the first choice, it takes a lot of time. Will that really help us to solve the problem?
Those ecosystems that we design will be simple to begin with. They won't have the rich complexity of natural systems. But we have to start somewhere. We have to progressively build the richness and the diversity, the biological diversity of those ecosystems. And by connecting urban people to nature, we recover our roots, we help child development. So there's research showing that child development and the capacity of children to appreciate nature increases as we expose them to nature. So the next generation will appreciate nature more. And then we develop a richer ethic for nature, right. And I think that's worth doing. What
is the next stage of technological development and its combination with the research going on of our cities, as you see it?
I think it's a combination of information from satellites and space, very quick capture of data on the health of ecosystems, and then people on the ground putting digital systems into ecosystems so they can measure the health of ecosystems. So if you connect the data coming from the ground and from satellite, apply those to our models, we can create sophisticated understanding of how these ecosystems will respond to change. So my analogy is that meteorology, people who predict the weather, we will be able to do the same thing for ecosystems.
And what kind of cities would you like your children to live in?
A greener city, a healthier city, a more biologically rich city, full of human diversity and biological diversity.
As simple as that, as complicated as that.
Exactly.
And it's such a pleasure to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
All the best for your work. Thank you so much.